Welcome to the culture class.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Culture Clash. Now, this one is this topic is crazy. All right, we're going to confront one of the most consequential battles for truth in our nation, the United States of America, the greatest, most powerful nation, in my opinion. Biased, yes, 100% biased opinion. Everybody can talk, yada, yada, yada. Okay, look, we'll get into that later. But honestly, it is an objective truth at this point. Just an objective truth. But a topic for tonight: deliberate weaponization of the word fascism by the left against conservatives, classical liberals, parents, and ordinary Americans who defend borders, free speech, biological reality, and ordered liberty. Will define the actual historical fascism, document specific examples of the left's false labeling of the right, examine the authoritarian patterns that have advanced under progressive banners, and assess the long-term implications for the United States in 2026 and beyond. We proceed without evasion, without ideological slogans, and without alliance to any faction, except for the right. Only with history, empirical evidence, ethical analysis, and a clear-eyed commitment to truth. Now, that said, let's get into it. Let us begin with the historical reality. Fascism was a specific 12th century ideology born in Italy under Benito Mussolini. I try to be, a little fancy with the word. It was a revolutionary, anti-liberal, nationalist, corporatist, and totalitarian in aspiration. It subordinated the individual to the state, and the leader rejected parliamentary democracy, exalted violence, and sought to remake society from the top down. Even though, in all actuality, it starts from the bottom to go to the top. But, anywho, German National Socialism shared totalitarian features while adding a distinct racial ideology. Both systems stood in direct opposition to classical liberalism, limited government, and the Judeo-Christian conviction that every person bears dignity under God rather than under the state. Now, after 1945, the term retained this precise meaning. Then, progressive academia, media, and activist networks emptied it, completely wiped it. By the 2010s, and especially after 2016, fascist became an all-purpose smear directed to anyone who resisted radical social transformation, defending national borders, affirming biological sex, opposing explicit materials in elementary schools, supporting school choice, or simply voting for candidates outside progressive orthodoxy was routinely branded fascist or adjacent. We all know this. Now, here are some concrete examples of the left's lying, and it is a complete lie. Major media outlets and progressive politicians repeatedly labeled Donald Trump and his voters fascists or Nazis. We see it with Charlie Kirk. Prime example. Parents who spoke at a high school board meetings against gender ideology and explicit curricula were branded as domestic extremists and potential fascists by federal officials and activist groups. Christians and classical liberals who insisted on biological reality in sports, medicine, and bathrooms were called fascists for defending sex based categories. Border security advocates were smeared as fascists for supporting enforcement of existing immigration law. Critics of COVID era mandates, speech codes, or DEI loyalty tests were painted with the same brush. In each case, the accusation substituted moral panic for historical accuracy. None of these positions matches Mussolini's total state, the cult of the leader, or the rejection of cultural limits. The pattern is consistent. Progressive institutes expanded the definition of fascism until it meant any effective resistance to progressive power. Similarly, they advanced practices that more closely resemble authoritarian control, compiled speech through pronoun mandates and DEI statements, deplatforming, and professional punishment for dissidents, politicized federal agencies treating parents as threats somehow, and the cultural normalization of viewpoint discrimination. Data from the last decade show the loudest users of the fascist label have often been the most aggressive practitioners of institutional coercion and speech suppression. This is the fundamental clash. Real racism is a historical totalitarian system that elevates the state above the individual and above transcendent moral law. The American founding tradition and biological chemistry both reject it. The left's expanded usage is not diagnosis, it is a political weapon designed to place opponents outside the bounds of legitimate debate. Proponents claim they are defending democracy. The record shows that they are eroding the norms of open inequity, equal speech, and restraints that make ordered liberty possible. The psychological and ethical stakes are clear. Take a moment to join the Pryce Media community on Discord. This is your space for deeper biblical discussion, cultural discernment, and authentic faith filled conversations with like minded believers. Connect with fellow listeners, engage with the episodes, and grow together in truth. Join now at pricemedia.com/Discord. Let's continue the conversation. Now, like I said before, philosophical and ethical stakes are clear and abundant. Scripture affirms the state's limited authority to restrain evil while placing every human power under the higher law of God. The individual is not the property of the collective. No, it is not. When institutions demand ideological conformity, punish dissent, and redefine language to control thought, they exhibit the authoritarian impulse they claim to oppose. Parents, churches, and free citizens had primary responsibility for forming conscience. The state must not become the final arbiter of acceptable belief. Nuances matter. Genuine far-right extremism exists and must be oppressed where it turns to violence or conspiracy. Mostly conspiracy. Violence, we'll see. Okay? Look, me personally, I'm not going to say there is no room for violence, but depends on what are they counts as violence? What are they? Well, no, what is the justification for the violence? If it's because this person says, oh, now I can give you an example of, okay, getting punched in the face. Okay, when you call for the death of conservatives, Hassan Piker, yeah, you gonna get hit. You gonna get punched. I'm just saying. I'm just letting you know. I'm just letting you know. Okay. When you say Nazis are bad people need to be killed. Well, you say, and then you call people a Nazi. You're basically saying, hey, indirectly, even though they try to get through this, basically saying this person needs to die, needs to be gone, right? So when you call for all this type of stuff, yes, no good. All right, but or at least when violence is directed towards you. Look, I believe in the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If you come after me, depending on how severe it really is, don't be afraid when I come back. Just saying, all right? Just saying. Like I said, just saying. Now, the nuances matter. All right. Historical fascism was real and destructive. Studying it remains legitimate. Yet the dominant pattern for the last decade has been the inflation of the fascist label to pathologize ordinary conservative and classical liberal positions, while, actually illiberal practices, controlled speech, institutional capture, taking over institutions and having them do what you want to do, basically indoctrination and all this other type of stuff. It's all that, right? And the suppression of inconvenient facts. So when you have the truth blown up in front of your face, this is a perfect example of this. I'm not gonna call him doctor. He does not give that respect. Anthony Fauci. All right, Anthony Fauci. Please the fifth. Even though we all know the truth, over 110 times. I'm hearing 115. I'm hearing 113, 111. But it's been at least over 100 times he pleaded the fifth while he's being questioned in the House committee. We all know the truth, and yet he still, wants to be like, I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. We need to get, somebody has probably made a soundtrack of that, a soundboard. I need to find it. 100%. But anywho, we all know the facts. Even though to them it's inconvenient, because during prime example, COVID. We all know the truth. People were dying. They had all this different stuff happening. They were enforcing the rights without really going after them, which is kind of crazy and weird. But it's, how do I kind of call this out? I don't know. But, like I said, we have the truth, the facts, the Holy Bible, the Word, the objective truth, God's moral law, the truth of Jesus Christ. And then we have the devil, the lies, the enemy, everything that goes against the truth. And because it's not, the lie is more convenient to the left, to the liberals. I'll say the left, really. It really is the left. it's more convenient to the left. They completely hide the truth, completely gone. I hope everybody accepts the lie. It is what it is, fortunately. But they call us fascists. Look, all of that advanced most rapidly under progressive banners. And you see why.
You're listening to the Pryce Podcast from PryceMedia.com, where we confront deception with scripture and point you back to Christ. New episodes drop weekly. Visit PryceMedia.com for live streams, gaming, and more kingdom content.
Now, the cultural messaging has shaped perception. Concerns about borders, biological reality, or free speech are moralized as the first steps towards fascism, while the steady expansion of administrative power and the politicization of education, medicine, COVID 19, and media are treated as progress. You have MS Now, CNN, um, NBC, but I think they're on the right track now. I'm not 100% sure about them, but I do know 100% facts CNN and MS Now. It used to be MSNBC, but now they call it MS Now, which is kind of retarded. But yeah, I mean, we see all this now. People still want to go out and call us fascists. Who knows, bro? But institutional incentives reward the most expensive use of the smear. So however you want to say it, the harder the topic, I would say, or I say the more truth we know about the topic, people still want to call us a fascist for no reason. Doesn't make any sense. Now the broader implications reach every domain. Public discourse loses the ability to diagnose real threats when language is emptied. Citizens are trained to see political opponents as existential enemies rather than the fellow citizens under a shared constitution. The partial pushback is visible in 2025-2026. The growing public fatigue with endless accusations, and I mean endless accusations, state level speech protection, and renewed insistence on historical definitions. They're making up definitions for words that we have known for hundreds of years. Hundreds, bro. They're making up brand new definitions for it. This shows the course correction means possible when clarity returns. And I mean true clarity, not the, oh, I found clarity. No. I mean, when you take this book right here and actually start to actually understand it, you open it up and like, oh yes, I know. Random verse. Psalms 123:4. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorning of those that are at ease and the contentment of the proud. Random verse, and it honestly, this is actually a really good verse for this. This is what it means when fascism is in control. But yeah, Psalms 123:4. Read it. I'll definitely do a little more study on that. I just randomly flipped to it. That's crazy. You know, the amazing stuff that God does for you, the amazing stuff that God provides. Spiritually, though, calling people fascists, it's like your soul is scorned. Let me find it again. Let me read it to you again. Psalm 123:4. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorning of those that are at ease, and with contempt with the with contempt of the proud. I feel like that's perfect for fascism. But anywho, now with everything that has been said, looking forward into 2026 and the coming decade, the path is clear. Recover the historical meaning of fascism and refuse its inflationary misuse. Defend free speech and viewpoint diversity as non negotiable. Reject both the romanticization of strongman politics and the progressive project of institutional capture. Requires recommitting to the American and biblical conviction that no human authority is ultimate and that the individual bears dignity no collective may erase. So we back. We are back. Stream cut out for a second there. I'm sorry about that, guys. But stream cut out for a second there. Hopefully we are back. Okay. Looks like we're back on everything. All right. So what you guys missed? Looking forward to 2026 and really the coming decade. The path of recovery. It is clear. Recover the historical meaning of fascism and refuse an inflationary misuse. Defend free speech and viewpoint diversity as non negotiable. Reject both the romanticization of strongman politics, and the progressive project of institutional capture. Strengthen family, church, and local community. You guys are going to love us. I'll be talking about that next week on the Culture Clash. The mediating institutions that form character and limit the reach of the state. Family, church, and community. These three things. These form culture. These form what we do as a society. We need to stop the capture, the left trying to capture these three. Family, church, community. Cultural, I need to get my own Wi-Fi at this point. I will need to start looking that up now. That's just great. But anywho. This is the Culture Clash. It concerns not merely a word, but the kind of people and the kind of nation we will form. One grounded in truth, limited government, and equal dignity under God. Or one, fragmented by rhetorical inclination and the steady advance of the totalizing impulse. History will judge how we respond. Will it be good? Will it be bad? Will it be something we've never seen before? History will be the judge of it. I did not call for Siri. What the heck? Anyway, the path forward demands intellectual honesty. And I mean honesty. Intellectual honesty. Objective truth, moral clarity, and a renewed fidelity to liberty under law. Thank you for engaging in this deep examination. Like this episode, like the stream, like the video if you are new. Subscribe. Share this with everybody that you know. Especially if it challenged you or cleared some of your thinking. Share it with somebody here. Hey, this guy's speaking some truth. Let me put you on. Support independent discourse that refuses to evade difficult realities. Until next time, may we pursue truth with bold conviction and clarity. Keep seeking the kingdom first. God bless. And this has been the Pryce Podcast. Peace.
Introducing Pryce Shorts, the sharpest insights and most engaging moments from the Pryce Podcast and Boy Basic now in the palm of your hand. Thought-provoking commentary, even in a fatherless era. Faithful fatherhood conforms us to Jesus and builds his kingdom across generations. Practical advice for the individual man. Embrace Colossians 3:23 and Ephesians 5 headship. Entertaining highlights. All in seconds. Pryce Shorts, your daily dose of premium content from Pryce Media Group LLC. Subscribe now and never miss the best bites. Peace.